Good afternoon and welcome to another exciting episode of Sports Federation TV. We talk about sport, we talk about how sport is played, we talk about passion on and off the field. I'm Elton Davids, I'm your host, and we've got an exciting lineup for you tonight. We're chatting to double world champion Mr. Ryle the Morny. We're chatting a bit about the Western Province team that won the Currie Cup, and we'll catch up with the Cape Health drivers. Let's start with Mr. Ryle. Good evening, double world champion. How are you doing?
I'm good, Alton. Thanks for having me again, man.
Are you good?
Yeah, very well, very well.
What's it being like being a double world champion?
It's still a surreal experience. I think I'm still living on the high, still riding the wave, but yeah, it's been good.
A lifesaver on a wave, is that like a talk?
I guess so, yeah.
Tell us a bit about the first championship, the first title that you have as a sprint world champion. Tell us what's the sprint world champion all about.
Well, the event itself is basically just a 90-meter sprint on the beach. Obviously, it's our first day and the first part of my competition, so right throughout the day, heats, semis, quarters, up until your finals. Yeah.
And where was this held?
The competition was in the south of France, in Montpellier, in a beach called Le Grande Motte, so yeah.
And you went over how long before the competition?
Luckily, I think for this tournament, we got to land a little bit earlier, so we could sort of adjust just to the temperature, get to know the conditions a bit better. So I think we must have been there about a week before I actually competed, which helped a lot in terms of getting the nerves sort of settled and ready for the comp, yeah.
Because that's often the problem, is that you get to a competition and you get there the day before or 2 days before the time, and you still need to acclimatize and get used to everything. And a week is ample time, particularly with the climate and the terrain and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah, I think the week was perfect. We kind of got to just relax, take in a bit of the environment and the culture, and get to see the surroundings before we actually competed. So I think that element of arriving early also, obviously, like I said, helped us relax quite a bit. So a lot more prepared for the comp as it started, yeah.
Take us through the sprint event. How did it happen? What was the lead up to it? I mean, you were the SA champ, so now you're going over and you're competing. Take us through that first couple of heats. Tell us how the actual competition ran.
Well, I think on a mental level for me, firstly, I must say it was a big thing leading up to this competition. My prior world champs 2 years before, I had a bit of an injury, and that kind of was my setback. And a big mental thing was trying to get through and get conditioned and ready for the sprint. So once, I think, leading up to that actual first heat, that very first heat, was a lot of sort of anxiety and anticipation in, am I going to hold up? Obviously, I felt I was physically ready, but there's always that slight element of doubt just because of my history. So going into the competition, it's a lot of heats. I think we started off with about 13 heats of 8 guys, and then it runs down to another heat, and then your quarters, semis, and then, as I said, finals. So yeah, you run down. I think they take the top 4, and then top 4 all the way up until your semis, yeah.
And the mental preparation that you touched on, did you get training for that, or is it just as a result of your experience that you built up that kind of level of expertise?
I think experience does have a lot to play in what actually happened for this competition. I've been fortunate enough to have been to 3 world champs before this, so I kind of knew exactly what I needed to do and how I needed to prepare in terms of my conditioning and the training leading up to what it was necessary to actually compete and contest against the top guys and getting to that actual final itself. So yeah, the mental thing is very big, and I think getting comfortable and getting those first few runs out and actually feeling quite confident in those runs helped a lot and put my mind at ease, yeah.
And did you do what a lot of people call visualization? So you mentally replay the event before the time to get yourself used to it, or does that kind of stuff not work in your case? For
me, it definitely does. I think I find myself daydreaming quite a lot before a competition, just thinking about the competition itself in terms of the competitors, who's going to be there, how I'm going to start, what my hands are going to do. And I think more before the race than the actual race itself. So once I'm in it, it's kind of just a blur a lot of the time. Before was where I actually started getting myself a bit worked up and thinking about who's going to be there, am I going to hold up? But yeah, I think it's very necessary to go through that procedure, and I do it. I find myself doing it a lot, months before a competition, even in a big competition like this. Just kind of just to get myself and my mind grasped on what's actually necessary. Yeah.
Do you think that plays a vital role in the event? Because what happens is a lot of people therefore then plan the event according to that, and when they get the hardest part of the event is actually the preparation to the event. So when you get to the event, you kind of go into autopilot. Did the same kind of thing happen for you?
I think I would say yes. The mental thing again during training, it's kind of a bit of a motivation as well, leading up to the comp. So the mental prep is always there, and once you get there, certain people can obviously turn it on, and certain people can compete at that level, and certain people kind of give in to that pressure. So that in itself is a complete different event on its own. So yeah, I think for me definitely a lot of it goes towards getting there and getting to that point where, okay, this is it, this is what you've worked for.
Yep.
And then it's kind of just switching on from there.
Talking about the switching on, what was it for you that turned you on and off? Because I mean, it's a long day. You're not going to be in the zone for the whole 12 hours of that day. What was it like? How do you, in your case, how do you switch on, switch off?
I've been lucky enough, obviously, to do a lot of comps. So we have our regional comps, Western Province champs, and our national champs. And that kind of, I use that as a sort of a test in terms of switching on, switching off. So there's a lot of time in between your heats and your quarters and your finals. So I find myself just having a quick little power nap a lot of the times before my events. I'm just waiting it down because, I don't know, it doesn't really help getting anxious and just sitting there waiting. So I kind of just relax, mellow out, and you'll catch me probably sleeping on the like the few hour or half an hour before the actual event or the next race. Yeah.
And hopefully in the shade and not in the sun.
Yeah, no, definitely in the shade. Yeah, always in the shade, hiding away somewhere, just on my own, and then waiting to get switched on again.
And the event. I mean, you had heats, quarters, semis-finals. In between all of that, you took a power nap, amongst other things, eating, socializing, having a jaw, basically.
I wouldn't really say having a jaw. Still thinking of the final race and trying to get there. I think it did help. Like, I had a lot of confidence going into the heats. I was very comfortable in the heats. I won those very comfortably, and that did help me sort of relax, like I said. Eating as well, it's not that easy. I honestly struggle a lot to even put down a quarter of a chocolate if I can. I kind of just do it because I know I need to, and I know I need the energy.
Yep.
Yeah, my stomach churns the entire day. I don't really show it, but I think on the inside there's a lot going on there. So there's a lot of nerves and a lot of struggling just to even eat something. So yeah, and I also try run dry, so I don't have a lot of liquids, which is not a great thing. But I think it's again a mental thing for me. So yeah, once I finished with those heats, though, I think that confidence almost allowed me to actually maybe just eat a little bit more than I would normally be able to. Yeah.
But that's the trait of a true champion. Is the competitor should never know what you're thinking and what you're feeling. You should be brave on the outside and very scared and anxious on the inside.
Yeah, I think I've learned to front a good smile and make people think I'm not too stressed out. So yeah, it works for me.
Look at the smile now. Take us through the semi-final and the final of the sprint.
Yeah, so again, I have to play on the mental aspect of it. Getting there, it was comfortable, and I didn't have to obviously run 100%. My start was feeling quite good, and I could kind of taper off towards the end of the race. Semi-finals, I wasn't too sure, but I knew obviously just to make the final was the most important thing for me, and not to obviously overexert myself. I mean, you're doing so many runs during the day. You obviously want to try not give 100% because you want to try keep some fuel in the tank. Semis again for me, I had a very good start and I was feeling very comfortable, and that gave me the confidence to get into that final. Again, for me, I knew in the final I'm obviously going to have to run 100%, and it's a zone and a level of sprinting that I don't often get up into. I mean, you can practice it in training as much as you like, but on the day and in that final run, it's completely different. I hardly ever and seldom get into that zone, and I'm running completely 100% switched on. And again, anxiety kicks in because a little bit of doubt. I know it's not good, but I always thought, okay, is the injury going to come into play? I have trained as hard as I can, but what if? But you cleared all just before the run, and you know, I think once I started that final race, looked up and looked to my side and couldn't see anyone, and I wasn't too sure if I'm ahead or not, or am I just not seeing properly, but still stuck it down and then looked again, and I knew, okay, cool, I've got this, and it was a very comfortable finish in the end for me. So very relieving and a good feeling finishing and crossing that line. Yeah.
What did it feel like crossing that line?
It was good. I mean, that's something that I wanted, and I mean, I had to wait. I missed out on it obviously 2 years before that. So 4 years ago was the last time I had the title. So It's a culmination of that 4 years of sort of training and mental preparation that kind of just escaped on the line. So yeah, it was a brilliant feeling. A lot of mixed emotion, yeah.
And standing on the top step of the podium while they sing the national anthem, what does it make you feel like?
Oh man, there's so much pride. I think just wearing those colours, or the Protea colours itself, and hearing your anthem and getting to sing your anthem that's a surreal experience. I don't think anything can take that away. That's something I've always wanted, and I wasn't sure am I going to tear up here or what's going to happen, but it was surreal. I mean, I think singing that anthem was kind of like, in my mind, a bit of a flashback on all the training and everything that led up to it, and what it took to kind of get there. So it's a crazy experience, yeah.
Absolutely. We're chatting to double world champion Mr. Ryle Morny. Let's take a short ad break, and when we come back, we'll hear about the second world championship title. See you now.
Tone up for summer and get the Evox Slimmers Pack. That's a GCC lean liquid, 240 millilitres, plus 60 free lean slim caps, now for only $179.95. Get the Lean Pro Diet Protein 1.9 kilograms, now only $379.95, and receive a free water bottle. Get the Evox CLA 110s for only $299.95, and receive another 110 caps of CLA absolutely free. Live healthy, live well, live Evox. Available at a Dis-Chem near you while stocks last. Evox Advanced Nutrition are the protein specialists.
Get so much more for so much less at Tata Wisterberg, like the Tata Indigo Vista Ego, from only $999 per month and 72 months to pay. This includes a service, a roadside assistance plan, license, registration and number plates. Only at Tata Wisterberg Brackenfell. SMS the words Vista Ego to 32010 and one of our service consultants will be in touch. Terms and conditions apply.
Tata is a good buy for sure.
This is Sports Federation TV. We're chatting to Mr. Ryle Morny, double world champion. Ryle, tell us about your second world title. What was that for?
That was for flags, yeah. So it's slightly different to sprints. It's a lot more races and a lot more sort of runs to get to a final. You're starting with a big heat of like 16 guys, and the basics of the event is you're facing away from a baton which is placed in the sand. A judge calls competitors ready, you're lying down in the sand facing away, heads down, and then the whistle or gun blows, and then you've got to turn around and kind of just get a baton. So there's always one less baton than there are competitors, and then it's an elimination process right throughout the day. That's kind of the basics of it.
and that must be hard. I mean, you're turning and pushing off that sand is not the easiest thing to do.
It's hectic. I mean, it's your entire body that comes into play. So it's upper body to get you up, and then you've got that drive over the 20 meters to get to the baton. So a culmination of reaction time, explosive reaction and speed, and then obviously the dive and the run and diving to get the baton itself. So yeah.
I think I must take that up, and maybe I'll get a six-pack like you. My one's in hiding at the moment.
That's lighting, like I said.
So take us through the semis and the finals, because that must have been just as tough and just as hard as the sprint event.
Definitely, I think possibly even slightly harder. It's grueling in the sun right throughout the day. I mean, you start early in the morning. You've got heats of 16 guys, and they take it down to 8. So essentially, in every heat, you're doing 8 runs, and then you move over to the next round and the next round until you can get to the quarters, and then semis, finals. So just getting up to those semis and the finals itself is a very strenuous thing. It's a lot of tactics come into play as well, in terms of what baton you're going to get, if you can and you have the opportunity, who you're going to try to get out, because at the end of the day, it's still about the points, and it's still a team sport. Yep. So you obviously want your country to do better than another, so you obviously want to get a country that's possibly ahead of you out the race before you, and then limit the amount of points that they can get in that event. So yeah,
it's quite tactical then.
It does. There's a lot of collusion going on and a lot of workings behind the scenes. So a lot of tactical stuff and a split decision making, because you don't always know where you're going to be in terms of the end of the race, and if you can actually get a baton or can knock a guy out. So a lot of backstabbing and conniving, and it's a crazy event, yeah.
But is it quite physical getting closer to that baton, or not really?
Definitely. I think as you get closer to the baton, and obviously closer to the semis and the finals, the speed sort of levels out, and you've got a lot of the quicker guys in the same heat. So there's a lot of body work and a lot of body play that comes into it. So it gets very physical, and I mean, everyone's representing their country, and this is the pinnacle of their event for them. So it's anything like kind of whatever it takes to get that baton kind of comes into play, you know. So yeah,
That's the aim, to get that baton.
pretty much grab the bat and get it before anyone else can. Yeah.
So take us through the final.
The final 16-man final again. I've never done that before. Generally, for me it's an 8-man final. So we'll normally have an A and a B final. So 8 men in the A final, 8 men in the B final. This year they did it a bit differently, and they had a 16-man final. So
For one baton.
No. So 16 men, and then you'll start off with 15 batons.
Okay.
And then
Oh,
you'll
okay,
do a
work your
race,
way
and then
down.
they'll get eliminated, and then there'll be 15 guys, 14 guys, 13 guys, all the way down to 1. So essentially, if you want to win that final itself, it's 16 continuous runs, and it just gets started.
So hold
harder.
on, 16 continuous runs, no break.
There's a slight break, so we did it concurrently with the girls.
Okay.
So we would run, get drawn out into positions, and then the girls would do a run, and then we'd go again. And
Okay, but now let's just pause there. Let's take the starting line. Do you draw lots, or do you just stand wherever? How does
no,
it work?
you draw lots, so it's randomized every single run. So obviously you can't lie next to someone to try to work with him. It's all
Okay.
randomized, yeah.
Okay, because I was worried about that, because now earlier we were talking about collusion, and then you get 3 oaks next to each other who's now going to push this one
Well,
oak
yeah,
out.
there's a certain element of control that is involved in it,
Okay.
but a lot of it again is depending on where you lie. I mean, it's always a risk when you're on the outside of the event itself, because you've got guys obviously pushing
Yep.
you out, and you've only got one option. It's either the one behind you, or say for instance you're on the left-hand side, inside to the right. You can't obviously go
Yep.
outside to the right or to the left. Sorry. So yeah.
But is there like a demarcated area, or can you just, if you're on the outside, just run wild?
You lie specifically on a
Okay.
position, so it's all evened out. So essentially, if there's 2 guys lying next to each other, there's the flag is directly in between the 2 of them. So
Okay.
no one's closer
So like
to
a channel
another.
kind of thing.
Yeah, no one's closer to a flag. No one really has more of an advantage than
Okay.
anyone else, as opposed to the people that you're lying next to and the rest of your competitors that can take you out of the event. Yeah.
So take us through that last run.
The last run to
The
get
last run for the get the baton. The final.
The final for me, I think even the top 3 was almost in a sense like a blur. Getting to the top 3 was tough. The crowd was immense. I mean, I've never been in a crowd like that. They really push you, and they're really making a lot of chants and singing. So there's a crazy atmosphere that's very distracting. And in between your races, you switch off slightly, and you listen to the crowd, and you take it all in, and then you got to switch back on again. So
Yeah.
getting to the top 3 and getting to that final run was almost a little bit harder than the actual final run
Yeah.
itself, because for me, like I can say again, I can't remember a lot of that final run. It was a big blur. My mind's kind of just cleared and couldn't hear anything. If you were having a conversation with me, I probably couldn't even remember it in
Yeah.
the final run itself. So the final run was kind of just a blur. I knew exactly what I needed to do, and if I could stick my turn and get up and get my jive going, I knew I could kind of have it.
Yep.
So yeah, it was ahead, I think 5 meters into the run, and just my eyes sort of lit up, but I still stuck down,
Yeah.
making sure no one sneaks in behind me
Yeah.
and gets it, and then grabbing that baton was just something else.
Another world experience that you can never forget.
Yeah, I think the culmination of the 2, getting after, obviously this is after sprint, so having the double for me was a massive goal, and it's something I wanted since my very first competition
Yeah.
when I was still 18 years old, and that was
2 years ago.
No, yeah, that was a couple years ago, and always wanted it. So obviously I had a lot of issues in the past comps, having injuries, and again not being conditioned and not being experienced enough. So this time around it was a surreal experience. I think all those years of training and desire and wanting the double, which is something that hasn't really been done before. So yeah, it was a big thing for me. It was massive. Yeah.
And now what's next for the double world champion?
Well, running up against the guys in the sprints, a lot of them were running track for their country and running some very quick times. And it kind of gave me a bit of motivation and made me realize, okay, I need to start getting onto the track. I unfortunately wasn't able to do it at school. And the next goal for me is running the track and hopefully representing my country on the track in sprint. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Western Province Athletics, here comes the power. Ryle, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you
Well
very much
done
for
again
having me again.
for being a double world champion. I'm honored to have you here
Thank
on the
you.
couch. We look forward to seeing you on the track.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks for having me as well.
You're most welcome, anytime. Let's take a short ad break. When we come back, we'll catch up with some of the highlights from the Currie Cup bus trip, and then we got Cape Al drivers. See you now.